Will the British decapitate the presidency before Independence Day? This is the title of a leaflet being distributed in Washington today, April 2nd. And this is the LaRouche Organization morning update. I'm filling in as often on Wednesdays for Harley Schlanger, who will be working with Helga later on her 11 a.m. webcast today. 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This is the leaflet. The title, Will the British Decapitate the Presidency Before Independence Day? A decapitation strike against Iran. It's a British trap to decapitate the Trump administration. So is Signalgate. And the first paragraph reads, as you are reading this, British intelligence influencers embedded in the Trump administration are attempting to force the resignation of one or more of the senior officials in his presidency. Many people in Trump's core MAGA electoral base, and even more among those that primarily voted for Trump against the collective Biden-Harris zombie White House because they wish to avoid World War III, are asking, as in the words of filmmaker Oliver Stone on X, quote, what the hell is going on? Trump has turned into Biden, mercilessly, relentlessly bombing Yemen and aggressively seeking a new war with Iran, unquote. Indeed, there's been a growing orchestrated drumbeat around Washington urging the Trump administration to use the recent U.S. airstrikes against the Houthis in Yemen as a prelude to and practice run for delivering a knockout punch to Iran next. Now, as those of you who've been watching this channel know, just in the last days, and it's mentioned in this document, Sir Richard Dearlove, formerly of MI6, the boss of Christopher Steele, who wrote the lying, dodgy dossier about Trump, is advocating that the U.S. partner with Israel to launch a decapitating strike on Iran. What we wish to point out that such a decapitating strike on Iran will not merely be devastating to Iran, but it will destroy the U.S. economy. It will destroy the Trump presidency. It could lead to a much wider war. And there was a Substack piece by former Congressman Dennis Kucinich yesterday warning that if we try to strike Iran's nuclear refinement research facilities, uranium enrichment facilities, then you're risking nuclear contamination all over the entire region, not to mention skyrocketing prices of petroleum, etc. It would be the height of folly. And apparently in Tehran, the Iranian deputy foreign minister for international and legal affairs met yesterday with the Russian ambassador. Russia and Iran are coordinating very closely on how to handle these threats coming from the misguided Trump administration. Now, also, the foreign minister of China, Wang Yi, is in Moscow for 3 days. And he said, quote, we advocate the eradication of the causes of the crisis, that is Ukraine-Russia crisis, through dialogue and negotiations, and ultimately the achievement of a fair, long-term binding peace agreement acceptable to all parties involved. He also says that a step toward peace, although not that big, is constructive. It is worth taking. You can't get peace lying down. You have to achieve it by hard work. I would say that these days peace seems to be much more difficult than war. And I think he is referring here to the negotiations ongoing between President Trump, President Putin, the United States, and Russia, which are still moving ahead. It is at least very important that we don't have this kind of treasonous operation as was revealed in the New York Times 2 days ago, the long history of how the United States was guiding and running the Ukraine-Russia war every step of the way, from a gymnasium in Wiesbaden, really making this so much. I mean, we knew it was that bad, but most Americans did not. And now 1 million dead Ukrainians. It's really outrageous. Also, China and Brazil are working, as you may or may not know, that Brazil and China have put forward different plans for a peace proposal between Russia and Ukraine. So they are working to come to an agreement on what they are putting forward. Now, the slaughter in Gaza carried out by Israel with American weapons is continuing. Israel also bombed Beirut, I guess 2 days ago. And I saw a program yesterday by an Israeli blogger claiming that Netanyahu and company now plan to occupy 25% more of Gaza. Frankly, I think they intend to take the whole thing. That's what Netanyahu said. Netanyahu, for his part, is in a great deal of trouble. 2 of his aides have been arrested in this Qatar Gate scandal, where, of course, Bibi Netanyahu had been funneling up to $1 billion to Hamas through Qatar in order to keep the Palestinians divided so that they would not ever form a state. And yes, that is very, very scandalous, and it raises a bunch of other questions, which I will not take up here. Apparently, President Trump and President El-Sisi of Egypt spoke on the phone yesterday. I don't know what was discussed, but part of it is the Egyptian peace plan for Gaza, or the reconstruction plan, which does not involve moving the Palestinian population out, but allows them to stay there. Egypt has spoken about some kind of transitional government in the area. They have spoken of immediately getting up 200,000 units of housing. Egypt is doing a lot to build housing, I know, and very rapidly eliminating their slums and putting people in reasonable conditions with water, electricity, etc. I imagine that's a plan for Gaza. The Egyptian plan, by the way, costs $53 billion over 5 years. I'd like to point out that that is a fraction of what the United States alone has sent to Ukraine. Can Bibi Netanyahu be pressed to allow the ceasefire, release of hostages, exchange of prisoners to continue? That will be seen. The United States could force him to do that in an instant. So I would say in this context, we must continue to really promote the Oasis plan of Lyndon LaRouche and Helga LaRouche. There are some discussions at a very high level occurring on that. That is a much bolder plan. There is nothing wrong with the Egyptian plan per se, but why not think bold to a fully modern region with nuclear power, desalinating water, building modern new industry, beautiful science cities? There's no reason why any human being on the planet should be living in a refugee camp. Now, in a late note of April Fool's Day humor, there was an open letter supposedly from President Putin to the German people. It's a response to the claims that Russia is going to invade Germany. And what they say is that the problem is that Germany's infrastructure is so decrepit that it would be very difficult for the Russian army to invade. Specifically, they say, quote, functioning logistics play a decisive role in any war, even a modern one. But according to President Putin, the German transport sector and its infrastructure are on the verge of collapse, and the whole of Russia does not have enough pioneer troops to put everything back in order. Putin also says Germany doesn't have enough skilled workers, and Russia doesn't have the skilled workers to spare to rebuild the infrastructure in Germany to Russian standards. So therefore, he considers an invasion of Germany to be impossible. That was apparently in the German language edition of Pravda. The Russians always have such a great sense of humor, even in very difficult situations. So here we are on the eve of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. The British are once again trying to subject our nation, to induce us to destroy ourselves in a foolhardy war with Iran or some other crazy adventure. They've invited us to rejoin the Commonwealth, which is an outrage. And we have to instead get the United States to return to its principles of being an anti-colonial power. And one of our best allies in this throughout history has been Russia. So the fact that these talks are moving along with all of their problems and the misinformation and the sabotage by particularly Britain and France creates the possibility that mankind can move forward.